This is a recipe for a Geographic Information System. You all know what that stands for. Preparation time. Everything that I talk about today, we provide in what we call a field to office ArcGIS Kickstart. So that 30 days is what we could provide these services for you in. Obviously, it's going to serve you and your staff, and then by default, your citizens, because you will be able to make better decisions with your data. We've got the ingredients, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, but then the directions I want to kind of walk through. So we're going to gather our ingredients. We'll talk about those. And then with those ingredients, you need to set up your accounts and applications. From there, then you can create the GIS really. So your feature layers, web maps, and web apps. And we're really passionate about hands-on training. We don't want to create something for you and then walk away and you never use it. So as part of the Kickstart, we provide hands-on training so that you have a good foundation to get started. Also with the Kickstart, we include 24 hours of technical service hours so that you can get up and running. And then in a month or so, when you have more questions or need some things changed, you don't have to pay more money. It's already built in. So we like transferring that data, that knowledge. So let's briefly run through the ingredients for this recipe. I won't do it anymore. You need a GNSS unit and some correction service. You need a cellular enabled tablet, so you can edit this in the field. And you'll be doing that through ArcGIS Online account. So you will need an account and the users there to access that data. And then optional is existing GIS or CAD data. This I would highly recommend if you have anything that you can get started with that. And so you're not truly starting from scratch. You're starting from some data you already paid for. Maybe it's just planned data from an engineer or as-built data, something like that. So this first piece you need, try not to use the word ingredient, a GNSS receiver and a correction service. So if you don't know what GNSS stands for, Global Navigation Satellite System, it is the generic term for GPS. So just a little bit of trivia. There are 4 global GNSS systems. Ours in the US is GPS. Russia has a system called GLONASS. The EU system is Galileo, and China has one. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but it's their word for Big Dipper. So that's important because you're not just using the GPS satellites that your receiver can see, but potentially from any of those systems as well. And then you need a correction service. So that you may be familiar with VRS Now with a different device that we use. We have a subscription through Trimble and VRS Now. Some states provide them. So the Iowa DOT has a correction service that you can access. But this device here, which is the DA2 that we're going to talk about today, uses Trimble Catalyst. And the reason this is what we provide in the Kickstart is price. So years ago, we bought a Trimble R2 and it was in the ballpark of $12,000. And that was for the equipment. For us, well worth it. We use it all the time. But that makes that starting price point kind of high for smaller municipalities. So Trimble recently came out with this DA2, which is much less expensive. And then you pay for a subscription. So there's flexibility in this correction service. So with our R2, we are already paying for that Trimble VRS Now. So it's not like the subscription is a completely additional cost. It is something you would have paid for anyway, but it gives you flexibility. And we'll talk about that flexibility later. And really what this does is it puts the ability to update your assets in your hands. So before, you either had to buy very expensive equipment to do it or hire someone to do that for you. We do provide those services and would be happy to do that for you in cases where that makes sense. But this lets you update your data when you put in a new valve or when you move a water main, you can immediately change your GIS data. The next thing you need is a cellular enabled tablet. So we recommend a 10.2 inch iPad. That's what comes when we do a Kickstart. This is what we provide you if you don't already have a device. Any larger and they get hard to handle in the field. They're hard to attach to the range pole. So this is a good size. They're relatively inexpensive. So if they do break, it's not a huge deal to buy another one. It does need to be Wi-Fi and cellular enabled. We do recommend iPads over Windows or Android tablets, which hurts my heart a little bit. I'm an Android person personally, but iPads work really well with field maps, which is the application you need. And in addition, Esri updates their Apple applications first. So if you have an Apple device, you're going to get those applications, those updates before the other programs would. I did want to note that if you have an existing Apple device, to use field maps, the application we'll talk about requires iOS 14.5 or later. So we actually have some iPads that cannot run field maps. Up until a couple months ago, you could still use Collector on those devices, but we have found some clients who had older devices, and even us, we could not access Collector, the maps we wanted to in Collector. So really forcing us all to move to field maps, which is great. That's where you should be. It doesn't feel a lot different than Collector if you used that before, but has a lot of additional applications. The next thing you need is an ArcGIS Online account and users. So if you guys already have GIS, you might already be familiar with ArcGIS Online. I'm going to explain it anyway, just in case you guys are using maybe local geodatabases and not publishing to the cloud. So this is where your GIS data would be stored. When you use ArcGIS Online, your data is published to Esri's AWS cloud. So you don't need infrastructure, you don't need servers. It's all stored in the cloud. Then you can access that data through applications, mobile applications, so the Field Maps app, or through a browser. And so what I want to do here really quick is open ArcGIS Online, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, what that looks like once you have data. So I'm going to pull this in. We'll talk a little bit about solutions in a little bit, but just wanted to introduce you to what ArcGIS Online looks like. So you've got tabs across the top, tabs, the second set of tabs here. But if I'm looking at my content and specifically the content that I have for sewer data management. So there are feature layers, which is where your information is stored. Then those feed into web maps where you can symbolize and edit data. And then those further can be put into web applications where you can access specific functions through a web browser. When you're looking at data through field maps, you'll be accessing it through a web map. So if you only ever want to see your data through a tablet and field maps, you never would have to create web mapping applications. But actually, you don't have to create those yourself anyway. When we get to solutions, I will talk more about that. So here's what an application would look like. And if we have time at the end, I'll dive into a little bit more. But your map's in the middle here, and then we've got a pane where you can edit the attributes. So if I click on a valve, then I'm going to see the attributes of the valve. If maybe my job in the office that day is to fill out all the in-service dates, you can do that through a web browser. You do not need desktop software. Even if you have desktop software, maybe somebody else wants to make some edits, they don't need software, they just need that ArcGIS Online login. All right, I'm going to slide this back over. And then you need users, and we'll get to that in a little bit too. So then that existing optional data, again, CAD data, publicly available data. If you don't have road center lines, you can get those probably from your state DOT as a place to start. Lots of ways you can get data, maybe from other agencies, from your county. If you want to have your own parcels, you can probably get those there. So What we do in the Kickstart is if you have utility data, so say water or sewer data, we can import that as part of the Kickstart. If you have more data that you want, we can certainly add that to the projects and get any data you want published to ArcGIS Online, so it's all in one spot. I will also add, since you guys are users, and probably already know this, but once it's in ArcGIS Online, you can pull that data back down into ArcGIS Pro and edit it as well if you have the licensing for Pro. But the nice thing is you don't have to do that. It's an option. All right, so those, we've gathered all our ingredients. And so now we get to putting them all together. Lots on this page, but I wanted to talk about the accounts you need to set up and the applications. Again, this is something we would do on your behalf in that Kickstart if you wanted. So in ArcGIS Online, there are lots of user types. These are the 3 I wanted to talk about today. Your creator, these are relatively self-explanatory, but your creators can create those maps, layers, and applications that I showed earlier. And then edit any of that data that's inside there. The mobile workers can edit any of that data through applications on tablets or on the desktop, but they cannot create new items. So they can't create new layers. They can obviously create new features. So if they're out in the field collecting data, they can create new features, but not new items. So not new maps or layers. And then your viewers can do just that, view your data. What's nice about these is the pricing. So creators right now through Esri are $500 a year. Mobile workers are $350 a year. And those viewers are just $100 a year. So you can really, for not a lot of money, put that GIS into the hands of the people who need it, who can use it to make those decisions that they need to make. So that's the ArcGIS Online side. Again, we're talking about using the DA2 from Trimble, and that requires a Catalyst subscription. So a couple of ways you can do this, and this is what makes it super flexible, and really why we're excited about sharing this with smaller municipalities and smaller organizations because of the flexibility. So they have monthly and annual plans. If you know you're going to use it all summer to collect all your water mains, you could go for a monthly plan. If you know you've got somebody full-time who's going to do this for a year, you could go with an annual plan. What we like is that they've got the on-demand hourly plans. And so you could buy as little as 10 hours at a time. Our Kickstarts come with, we buy 100 hours, we use 1 to get it set up. So after you're all set up, you have 99 hours to use. And that can be used by any number of users. So it's a bucket of hours that your staff can use. Again, what I like about that is if you're just updating water main, you know, when you find something that needs to move, or you've got a sanitary sewer project and you want to get that data updated once it's all in, you can do that. And then you're not paying for that. You're not paying for that subscription when you're not using it. So we like starting with 100 hours, seeing how far that gets you. And then, you know, then we could help you make decisions about what you want to do next. The Catalyst on Demand comes with centimeter level accuracy. I want to talk a little bit about accuracy. That doesn't mean every time you're going to get centimeter accuracy. Obviously that your environment makes a difference there. That relies on you having that range pole level and plumb. But it is very good accuracy. It will meet the needs of any map that you need, in my opinion. You wouldn't build a building off of that accuracy, but for what we're talking about putting in your hands, it's perfect. Those monthly and annual plans come with the option to dial that down a little bit if you wanted to. I don't really see an application for that here, but I did want to mention that. Then on your mobile device, you need 2 applications at least. You need Trimble Mobile Manager, and that's what's going to talk to talk to your device, make sure you have hours left. It is really nice. It tells you before you run, if you're on minute 59, it'll tell you have a minute left, and it'll ask you if you want to use another hour. So I really like how they've put that control in your hands. You're not going to use it for 61 minutes and get charged without knowing for that extra hour. And then we talked about ArcGIS field maps. That's where you're going to see your GIS data and be able to update the location and attributes as you're in the field. And again, because it's in the cloud, everyone's going to see those changes immediately. All right, so that was step 2. So step 3, now we've got everything ready to go. You've got layers. You don't have layers. You have the application, you have the device, you're ready to go. Now where's that data gonna go? And so this is where you'll create those feature layers, web maps, and web apps. What Esri has for us ready to go are some solutions. So I think the website is solutions.esri.com, but if you Google ArcGIS Online Solutions, you will find these. These are very quick to deploy to your organization. And that's what I showed earlier, and we'll get back into that. You know, the ones we see most frequently are water distribution, sewer data management, and stormwater data management. I will say these are made to appeal to a broad range of data and municipalities. So when you bring them in, there are lots of layers, lots of maps, lots of applications, but we can help you weed those out to just the things that you want to see. They can be adjusted, so you can add fields. If there's a field that you want to keep that's really important to you and is not in that data schema, then we can add those too. And again, we'll do as much as we can on the front end, but after that, we would use those blocks of hours to make changes as you've got some things as you use that you know you want to be different. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is look at those solutions a little bit more. Go back to my content. So the 2 I've deployed here is sewer data management and water distribution data management. And so again, that comes with all of these layers. We hit deploy and all of these published. So then from there, we imported the client's data so that they had data to start with. So there's one main view. So this hosted layer is where, I'm sorry, there's another hosted layer on a different page. So there is a main, right here, feature layer hosted. So this is the main layer where all the data is. Water distribution system. What they've done in the solution is made copies, hosted view copies of that layer with different layers visible, different symbology based on what that person, that use case might want to see. So if I open the water distribution editor map, actually I'm going to open the asset collector map. So this is what we would expect the user in the field to open up. And I'm going to open. Esri has come up with, so map viewers are new map viewer. I'm still by default opening things in map viewer classic. We have seen a few weird things with field maps specifically. So by default, I go back to map viewer classic for this specifically. So this is what you would open up in field maps. You would see this water distribution asset collector. You'd have a blue dot because your iPad now knows where you are. Let me zoom to a place with some fittings. And they all disappeared. All right, I'll try this real quick. Otherwise, we'll go to a different map. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and hope that they come back. Okay, I'm going to stop zooming in and I'll just click. Okay, so here's a fire hydrant. I'm going to click on, and if I was in field maps, then I could edit any of these. I could also say, as I zoom in, so I'm afraid to zoom in too far, but if I'm standing right here next to the fire hydrant, my blue dot is right next to the fire hydrant. All I have to do is say, hey, move that fire hydrant to where I'm standing. And immediately now it's the time that you updated is recorded. And that location is up to date immediately for you and everyone else. If you walk down the street and you see, oh, there's a new fire hydrant that we don't have in the system, then you can add that. And again, immediately available to everyone. So I'm going to go back to the content here. So that's just an example. And again, that's why there's multiple web maps, because they built this solution for those built-in users. So this viewer, if you had a viewer user, they would only be able to see this map that is view only. And so sharing is very, you can control who can see things, who can edit what. There's multiple levels of being able to control what your users are able to do. Okay, I may pull that back in, but I want to make sure we get to the end. So step 4, again, we're passionate about training and making sure you guys know how to use this. Whether or not we do the Kickstart, we're always available for training as well. So what the Kickstart comes with is in the field training. So we'll show you how to use the map, how to find assets. You will be logged in with your credentials so that when we leave, you're ready to go to start updating that data. So again, to find new assets and then to update assets, asset attributes and those locations. And then also for those staff members who are going to use it in the office, we do training to show you how to update those attributes, how to look at dashboards. That's the thing I will pull up here in a minute, so that you can share that information. You can get the data, the information you want out of your data. That's really important to us. No two clients are the same. No two sets of data are the same. And so we want to be able to tailor these solutions as much as we can to you. So here's a couple examples of dashboards. And again, these two specifically came built in. I didn't create them. When we added those fire hydrants to the fire hydrant layer, this number automatically updated. If you're in the field and you find a new one, that's automatically going to update. So you can let your citizens know, hey, this is how many miles of water main we maintain. That's where your money is going. So these are great to share internally, but also potentially to share with the public. Bill, do we have any questions?
I know we're good right now.
Okay. So I'm going to take one more minute to show off those dashboards, and then we'll finish right on time. So a dashboard is just an application, let me see, that is view only. It shows, you can customize it. These are less exciting than some we've created ourselves, but it tells you exactly what you need and very quickly. And again, these are always up to date. So this came with just an overview of the assets. There's also some more details about water main. Again, as you populate new data, so this is all of the water that we put in, all the water main, the material was unknown. But as you populate that material, as you figure out what it is, maybe look at plans, then you're going to get a better picture of what your assets are. There's one for services and hydrants. And again, these were built in, but they can be updated and configured as needed. Part of that training can be to show you how to do that if you're interested.